1901. The Glenfinnan Viaduct is one of the most remarkable feats of Victorian engineering. A railway bridge that arcs across 380 meters, 1,250 feet of rugged terrain, suspended on 21 stone arches. At its highest point, it rises 30 meters, 100 feet above the valley floor. But it's not the height you remember. It's the way it moves, gracefully, like a river of stone, curving through air and time. This is not merely infrastructure. This is sculpture. And when the wind rushes beneath it, it feels almost alive. Most visitors to Glenfinnan don't come just to see the bridge. They come to hear it, to feel it, to watch it come alive. That happens when the Jacobite steam train, better known to millions as the Hogwarts Express, chugs into view. Thick white smoke curls from the engine. The rhythmic clatter of wheels echoes through the glen. And as the train rolls across the viaduct, steam billowing against sky, there's a collective hush. For a moment, everyone, adults, children, locals, travelers, believes in magic, even if just for a minute. Thanks to its appearance in the Harry Potter films, the Glenfinnan Viaduct has become one of the most recognizable railway bridges in the world. Fans travel from every corner of the globe to stand on the hillside and watch the train, often reenacting the scene where Harry and Ron soar over it in a flying car. But even if you've never read the books or seen the movies, the moment is unforgettable. Because the truth is, the real magic was always here. The films only revealed what Scotland had already created. Just beneath the viaduct lies the Glenfinnan Monument, a solitary stone column rising beside Lochs, crowned by a lone Highlander. It marks the spot where Bonnie Prince Charlie raised his standard in 1745, beginning the final, fateful Jacobite rebellion, an uprising that would culminate in heartbreak at Culloden less than a year later. This land remembers. The glen is soaked in storm, rebellion, romance, resistance. You can feel it in the soil, in the mist, in the solemn stance of the statue, who has watched centuries pass with quiet defiance. To truly feel Glenfinnan, climb the short path to the viewpoint on the hillside. From there, everything opens. The viaduct, perfectly curved. Lochs, stretching like polished obsidian toward the horizon. The Jacobite Monument, a quiet sentinel at the water's edge. And beyond, the mountains, ancient and unmoved. It's one of the most breathtaking vistas in Scotland, not because of grandeur alone, but because of how everything fits. Nature and architecture, history and fantasy, stone and soul. Often overshadowed by the viaduct, Lochs is a wonder in its own right. A long, narrow loch hemmed in by steep hills, untouched and pure. At 28 kilometers, 17 miles long, it stretches far beyond what the eye first sees. Its waters reflect everything. The sky, the trees, the history. And when the wind drops and the surface turns to glass, the loch becomes a portal to other times, other lives, other dreams. Many don't venture down to its edge. But those who do are rewarded with silence, solitude, and that feeling of being very small and very alive. In 1901, when engineer Sir Robert McAlpine and his team built the Glenfinnan Viaduct, it was considered an ambitious, even reckless project. Constructed entirely of mass concrete, it was the first of its kind in the world, a leap of innovation in a landscape that resisted change. Peat bogs had to be crossed, weather had to be endured, the curvature had to be precise, but they built it, and over 120 years later, the bridge still carries trains and wonder through one of the wildest places in Britain. Glenfinnan isn't just a stop on a tour. It's a place that changes how you see the world. It reminds you that travel is not always about distance. Magic often hides in the ordinary, and sometimes standing still and watching is more powerful than moving fast. Watch the train pass. Listen to the birds. Feel the stone beneath your boots. And let the wind tell you a story that has no words. On rainy days, and there are many, the mountains vanish. The viaduct becomes a shadow, and the loch disappears into a world of gray and silver. But don't turn back, because this is when Glenfinnan becomes pure Scotland, raw, mysterious, full of fear, a place where legends walk quietly beside you and ghosts smile behind veils of cloud. From Glenfinnan, the West Highland line continues to Malay, passing beaches that look Caribbean and mountains that rival Norway. But before we follow that path, we turn northwest, toward islands that dance on the edge of the Atlantic, where the wind speaks in the wind, where beaches gleam white beneath gray skies, where mystery is not a river, but a resident. At the edge of Scotland, where the sea grows louder than the land, lie islands born not of stone, but of silence. Welcome to the Outer Hebrides, a string of isles floating in the Atlantic like the last breath of Europe. Remote, reverent. These islands are not a destination. They are a departure from noise, from pace, from the ordinary. This is where Scotland shows you its bones, its windswept soul, its sacred hush. The Outer Hebrides, also known as the Western Isles, stretch for over 200 kilometers, an archipelago of over 70 islands, of which only a fraction are inhabited. Here, time slows. Here, the Gaelic language still lives, not as memory, but as daily rhythm. Here, the Sabbath is observed with reverent stillness. On Sundays, shops close, ferries push, the world simply rests, and the people, fiercely proud, quietly strong, deeply rooted in tradition. This is not a place that performs for visitors. It simply is. The Outer Hebrides, also known as the Western Isles, stretch for over 200 kilometers, an archipelago of over 70 islands, of which only a fraction are inhabited. Here, time slows. Here, the Gaelic language still lives, not as memory, but as daily rhythm. Here, the Sabbath is observed with reverent stillness. On Sundays, shops close, ferries push. The world simply rests, and the people, fiercely proud, quietly strong, deeply rooted in tradition. This is not a place that performs for visitors. It simply is. Though often spoken of separately, Lewis and Harris are one landmass, divided not by water, but by character. Lewis to the north, is windswept moorland and quiet villages. Here, peat smoke curls from chimneys. Crofts stretch toward the sea. The land feels broad, ancient, contemplative. In contrast, Harris, to the south, is wild. Mountains rise sharply. Beaches shine white. The landscape becomes poetry written in rock and salt. Together, they offer a portrait of contrast, two moods, one island. Standing in a field of heather on the Isle of Lewis, exposed to wind and sky, is one of the most mysterious ancient sites in Europe. The Callanish Stones, a circle of towering monoliths, older than Stonehenge, aligned with the moon and stars. 13 standing stones surround a central pillar. Long avenues of stone radiate outward like a Celtic cross. Why were they built? To mark lunar cycles, to worship ancient gods, to remind us that even 5,000 years ago, we looked up and wondered. No one knows. What we do know is this. Stand among them at dawn, when the mist clings to the grass, and you'll feel time forward. Not just history, but eternity. On the west coast of Harris lies Luskentyre, a beach so radiant, so improbable, it feels like a dream. White sand stretch for miles. Turquoise waves lap softly. Mountains stand as silent sentries in the distance. If you didn't know better, you might think this was the Caribbean, until the sea reminds you with a single touch. This is Scotland, and the water bites. But that's part of the beauty. It doesn't pretend. It simply shines. And when the wind drops, and the sun bursts through the clouds, Luskentyre becomes something holy. A cathedral without walls. A prayer made of salt and sky. In the outer heaven, Gaelic is not preserved, it is lived. Road signs speak in two tongues, but most homes speak in tongue. Children sing in Gaelic, elders tell stories, ministers preach, musicians play. To walk through a Hebridean village is to feel a language breathe around you, soft, musical, earthy. And it's not just language, it's culture, storytelling, hospitality. Step into a local home and you'll be offered tea, perhaps whiskey, always warm. Not performance, but welcome. A reminder that in the hardest lands, people often grow the softest hearts. South of Harris and Lewis lies Uis, a chain of islands connected by causeways and storages. Here, mature meadows bloom with wildflowers. Here, ancient black houses with turf roofs and thick stone walls huddle against the wind. Here, lochs and sea interlace in a delicate dance, so that land and water blur into one living thing. Walk the beaches of Burnham, where seals bask on sandbars. Wander the ruins of Rannoch Moor Church, where walls crumble with grace. Listen to the lap of waves and the hush of wind, and let it still you. On Sundays, a different stillness settles. No shops, no distractions, only church bells and the quiet rhythm of rest. It may feel unfamiliar, but it is intentional, a deliberate keeping of peace. A choice to say, today we don't strive. Today, we simply are. It's not for everyone, but for those willing to slow down, it offers something rare. Space, reflection, presence. No matter where you stand in the Hebrides, the Atlantic Ocean is never far. It is not background, it is character. It pounds cliffs with fury. It laps coves with tenderness. It brings weather and waves and wonder. And in winter, when storms roar across the sea, the islands hunker down. They do not fear the storm. They know it. They have danced with it for centuries. Here, Life bends with nature, not against it. To leave the Outer Hebrides is to feel something subtle too, not violently, but gently, like the loosening of an embrace. You carry away not just memories, but a different rhythm, slower heartbeat, a wind in your hair that doesn't go away, a silence that echoes long after the ferry has pulled from the shore. From these sacred isles, we return inland to a loch beloved by poets, clans, and kings, where every ripple tells a tale, where islands float like stepping stones between worlds. Some places reflect more than light. They reflect longing, memory, hope. This is Loch Lomond, a loch not just of water, but of emotion. The largest inland stretch of water by surface area in all of Great Britain, Loch Lomond marks the gateway between the gentle lowlands and the wild highlands. It is the threshold of two Scotlands and the beating heart of both. Even if you've never seen it, you've heard its name. Oh, ye'll tack the high road, and I'll tack the low road. The ballad is older than wars, older than borders. It is sung at weddings, whispered at funerals, hummed by those far from home. It is a song of parting, of paths divided, of a homeland held tight in the soul. And Loch Lomond is not just its backdrop, it is the song, a still, wide canvas upon which every Scot paints something personal. Loch Lomond stretches over 71 square kilometers, cradled by sloping hills and looming mountains. To the east, the landscape is gentle, lush meadows, tidy woodlands, walking trails where picnics and poetry come naturally. To the west, the land rises with drama. Ben Lomond, the southernmost Munro, a Scottish mountain over 3,000 feet, stands watch with a quiet grandeur, and the shoreline turns wild and jagged. Here, Scotland changes character, from song to silence, from field to craft, from past to legend. Scattered across Loch Lomond's surface are 38 islands, some tiny, others large enough to walk for hours without circling back. Each has its story, its spirit, its silence. Inchmurray, the largest, is a world unto itself, home to deer that swim between shores and ruins of an old castle that once welcomed kings. Inchkeelock, the Isle of the Old Woman, holds ancient burial ground in sacred woods, a place of pilgrimage for centuries. Inchconnechen hosts a population of wallabies. Yes, wallabies, a strange legacy of aristocratic eccentricity. And from a boat on a calm day, the islands seem to float like stepping stones to another realm. At the southern tip of the loch lies Ballard, a lively town where travelers begin their journey northward. From here, cruises depart, winding gently through islands, narrated with lore and laughter. It's a place where modern Scotland meets ancient water. Here, you can stroll the elegant gardens of Ballard Castle Country Park, enjoy traditional music in a cozy pub, or set off by bike to follow the West Loch Lomond cycle path, which hugs the shoreline for miles. The loch may begin here, but it doesn't stay tame for long. At 974 meters, Ben Lomond offers one of the most rewarding climbs in the country. The path is clear, the incline steady, challenging enough to quicken the breath. but not so steep as to demand solitude. Hikers pass through shifting stages: wooded glens, open moorland, rocky ridges where ravens ride the thermals, and at the summit, a panorama that silences thought. The loch, vast and gleaming below, mountains rippling into the horizon, and behind you, a trail of effort, now rewritten as joy. To climb Ben Lomond is not just to ascend, it is to remember how small we are and how beautiful that smallness can be. Loch Lomond is part of the Loch Lomond in the Trossachs National Park, the first national park established in Scotland. Its waters shelter salmon, trout, and shark. Its skies host ospreys, buzzards, and golden eagles. Its shores rustle with otters, pine martens, and the occasional red squirrel darting through pine. Every sound is part of a larger song, the whisper of reeds, the splash of a leaping fish, the hush of wind across the water. Here, nature does not perform, it invites. As with all great Scottish places, Loch Lomond is wrapped in legend. Stories speak of hidden treasures beneath its surface, of fairies who once danced on the shores, of lovers who parted beneath moonlit trees, one to take the high road, the other the low. But perhaps the greatest legend is the loch itself, not what it hides, but what it reveals. Whether you paddle its shores in a kayak, or sit in stillness on a mossy bank, whether you climb high to see it from above, or cruise gently across its waves, whether you're saying goodbye, or finally coming home, Loch Lomond meets you where you are, and then it carries you just a little further, into stillness, into memory, into wonder. Stay until twilight, if you can. Watch the sun soften, turning the water to gold. Watch the first stars blink above Ben Lomond. Listen as the loch quiets, not into silence, but into a deeper kind of sound. The sound of belonging, of beauty that doesn't need to be seen to be felt, of a place that doesn't need to explain itself. This is Loch Lomond, Scotland's stillest story. Now, we travel north to a city often overlooked, but one that quietly holds the title of Highland capital, where castles watch over rivers and tradition hums through the streets. Where the River Ness meets the sea, a city rises, quiet, dignified, enduring. This is Inverness, the capital of the Highlands. A place where modern life and ancient memory move together like the tides. Not loud, not hurried, but deeply, unmistakably Scottish. If Edinburgh is the mind and Skye the soul, then Inverness is the heartbeat, steady, strong, and surrounded by wild beauty. The River Ness flows through the heart of Inverness like a vein of light. Short and swift, it connects Loch Ness to the Murray Firth, carrying stories with every ripple. Stone bridges arch gracefully across its waters. Fishermen cast lines in early morning mist. Swans glide, undisturbed by traffic and time. Walk the riverbank at dusk, and you'll see what locals know well. This river is not just scenery, it is life. It calms the city, it centers it, and it always leads somewhere beautiful. Perched on a hill above the river stands Inverness Castle, its red sandstone walls glowing warmly in evening light. Though the current structure dates to the 19th century, the site has been fortified since medieval times. It's here that Macbeth may have ruled, and where Shakespeare's imagination took root. From the castle's viewpoint, The whole city stretches below, the curved spine of the River Ness, the rolling hills beyond, the northern sea shining in the distance. The castle is not a grand tourist trap. It is a quiet witness of rebellions, coronations, and the ever-turning wheel of Highland life. Inverness doesn't try to impress you with sighs. It welcomes with bows. It's a city that lives easily between history and the present. Traditional Highland music plays in pubs, while modern cafes serve oat milk lattes and poetry nights. Tweed shops sit beside tag startups. You'll hear Gaelic spoken on one corner and global accents on the next. It is cosmopolitan, but never performative. Rooted, but never stuck. Wander the old town, and you'll pass through narrow lanes and modest squares. Here, time seems to lean in, not to trap you, but to walk with you. You might find a bookstore older than your grandparents, a tea shop with scones that taste like memory, a craftsman shaping sporns by hand, just as his father did. And when the cathedral bells ring out across the rooftops, echoing down the cobbled streets, you feel it again. Inverness doesn't chase the past, it walks beside it. St. Andrew's Cathedral, the northernmost Anglican cathedral in the UK, sits proudly beside the river. Its red sandstone towers are less grand than those of Glasgow or Edinburgh, but somehow more human. Step inside, and the hush takes you. Stained glass glows like fire trapped in stone. The scent of old wood and candle wax lingers. This is a place for stillness, not spectacle. A place with a sacred whisper rather than shouts. Just a few miles outside Inverness lies a Neolithic mystery, the Clava Cairns. 3 circular burial chambers, surrounded by standing stones, built over 4,000 years ago. They predate the pyramids. They outlasted empires, and yet they remain silent, perfect, inexplicable. No signs, no fences, just wind and memory. Walk among them, and you may feel a strange sensation, as if the air thickens or time falls. Many do. This is Scotland, after all, where stones have voices, if you know how to listen. Ten minutes from Inverness lies one of the most somber places in Scottish history, Culloden Moor. Here, on April 16, 1746, the Jacobite dream ended. In under an hour, over 1,500 men, mostly Highlanders, fell to British fire. Walk the field today, and it's eerily still. Gravestones mark clan names. Flags flutter faintly. The heather sways, as if bowing. The visitor center tells the story. The battlefield feels it. This is not just history. It is a wound. And yet, in the quiet, there is also strength. A whisper that says, they fought, they believed, and we remember. When night falls, Inverness doesn't blaze. It glows. Street lamps shimmer on the river. Music drifts from open doors. A fiddle, a song, a shared laugh. Locals gather in pubs like the Hutanity, where ceilidh bands play till the floors tremble. Outside, lovers walk hand in hand beneath trees strung with fairy lights. It's a small city, but at night, it fills the heart. For many, Inverness is a beginning, a base from which to explore Loch Ness, the North Coast 500, or the Isle of Skye, a place to stock up before heading into the wild. But for those who pause, who stay a while, Inverness gives more than supplies. It gives clarity, balance, the calm between landscapes, the breath between stories. From here, we journey west once more to an island shaped by wind and worship, wildness and saints, where monks once changed the course of European history. In the western seas, beyond where most go, lies an island shaped by mist, mountain, and memory. Welcome to Mull, the second largest island of the Inner Hebrides, a place of salt air and silence, of wild coasts, ancient faith, and stories told in seabird crimes. And just off its western shore lies Iona, a tiny island barely 3 miles long, yet holding more spiritual weight than whole nations. This is not just landscape, this is legacy. The ferry to Mull departs from Oban, gliding past green headlands and low gray clouds that seem painted into the sea. As the mainland fades, something changes. The wind smells different, older, cleaner. The sky widens. And before you appears Mull's rugged silhouette, its coastline broken like torn paper, its mountains curled under the sky like sleeping giants. You arrive not at a city, but at a possibility. The capital of Mull is Tobermory, a postcard-perfect harbor town where rows of brightly painted houses reflect in the quiet bay. Pinks, blues, yellows, reds. Each building seems to hum its own note, and together they form a visual melody. Tobermory is small, just a few streets, but full of charm. Fishermen man nets. Children skip stones. Visitors sip tea by windows that face the sea, and from every angle, calm. This is a town unbothered by hurry. Here, life is measured in tides and smiles. Beyond Tobermory, Mull stretches in all directions, a patchwork of mountains, moors, sea cliffs, and lochs. Its roads are narrow and windy, its sheep fearless, its landscapes some of the most dramatic in Scotland. Drive the coast, and you'll find secluded beaches where the only footprints are yours, lochs that lie like silver mirrors under moody skies, hills that rise suddenly, steeply, as if the earth couldn't hold its breath, and over it all, silence, interrupted only by seabirds, waterfalls, and the distant lowing of cattle. Mull doesn't perform, it exists, and that is more than enough. Mull is one of the best places in Europe to see wildlife in the wild. Here, you may spot white-tailed sea eagles, the largest raptors in Britain, soaring with wings wide as shadows, otters playing in kelp beds or sunbathing on rocks, red deer emerging from forests at dawn, minke whales, dolphins, and even basking sharks in the surrounding waters. Nature here is not curated, it is true, raw, unpredictable, alive. Bring binoculars, bring patience, but most of all, bring respect. On the southwestern edge of Mull lies the tiny village of Fianfort, where land seems to pause before becoming sea again. It is from here that boats depart for Iona, just 10 minutes away, yet across a channel deeper than time. Even before you set foot on the ferry, you feel it, that this crossing is not just physical, it is spiritual. You are not just going to a new island, you are going to the source. Iona is small, just a few hills, cluster of homes, a monastery, a wind that never quite stops. But in the year 563 AD, it became the center of a spiritual revolution. Here, St. Columba, an Irish monk, landed with 12 companions and founded a monastery that would become the beacon of Celtic Christianity. From this tiny rock, the message spread across Scotland, England, and into continental Europe through illuminated manuscripts, peaceful missions, and enduring devotion. Today, Iona remains a sacred island for Christians, seekers, and anyone who craves silence. Its beaches are silver. Its grass grows thick above old gravestones. Its sky feels closer. And in every stone, every wave, every gust, a sense of peace not found elsewhere. The centerpiece of the island is Iona Abbey, a quiet gray structure rebuilt from ruins by hands that believed in hope. Walk through its arched cloisters, where shadows fall like prayers. Stand in the sanctuary, where monks once chanted in candlelight. Read the names on ancient slabs, kings of Scotland, perhaps even Macbeth himself. Outside, sheep graze around crosses that have stood for 1,000 years. Birdsong filters through weathered windows. It is a place not of spectacle, but of surrender. You don't enter Iona Abbey to take photos. You enter to listen. There is always a sound here, but not noise. It might be the wind hissing across the grass, the ocean pulsing on white sand, a distant bell rung not for tourists, but for time. These are the sounds of a place that never forgot itself, a place where every footstep matters, because you walk not just on earth, but on meaning. The ferry leaves Iona quietly, slipping back toward Mull under a sky that often weeps. Not sadly, but reverently, you may find yourself changed. Not dramatically, not obviously, but something quieter, something softer in the heart. That's Iona. It doesn't convert you. It reminds you of what was already sacred inside. Now we return to the mainland, where stone defies the ocean, to a place where rule becomes art, where cliffs cradle a legend. There is always a sound here, but not noise. It might be the wind hissing across the grass, the ocean pulsing on white sand, a distant bell, rung not for tourists, but for time. These are the sounds of a place that never forgot itself, a place where every footstep matters, because you walk not just on earth, but on meaning. Approach Dunnottar, and you see it long before you reach it, an outcrop of jagged rock, crowned by crumbling towers and walls that still seem to defy gravity. Waves crash below, seabirds circle high above, and the wind sings through broken windows like an old warrior remembering battle songs. The path winds down a steep cliffside, then climbs again, 200 stone steps that feel like a descent into myth, and a rise into legend. At the top, you don't feel like you've arrived at a tourist site. You feel like you've discovered something forgotten, something the sea itself tried to hide. Dunnottar is not just scene, it is sacred history. Built in the 13th century and expanded over the years, the castle played a key role in Scotland's most defining moments. It was here that William Wallace attacked and burned an English garrison during the Wars of Independence. Here that King Charles' two Scottish supporters secretly hid the crown jewels of Scotland, the honours from Oliver Cromwell's advancing army in 1651. And here that Covenanters, who resisted forced changes to their religion, were imprisoned in the 17th century, packed into a dank cellar overlooking the merciless sea. These walls have heard the cries of battle and the prayers of prisoners. They've stood against English armies, rebel fires, and centuries of storms. And still, they remain. Unlike palaces of pageantry, Dunnottar's architecture is pure defense. Its position alone on a peninsula with a single, narrow land bridge made it nearly impregnable. The complex once contained a keep where lords ruled and warriors rested, a chapel silent now, but once echoing with Latin hymns, barracks, vaults, a smithy, the bones of a self-sufficient stronghold. Today, it's a maze of ruins, but ruins that feel alive. Every doorframe is a portal, every fallen stone, a line of poetry. Walk slowly. The castle rewards stillness. Stand on the far end of the ruins, where the cliff falls away sheer into the sea. Look east, and you'll see nothing but the endless Atlantic. Look south, and the coast unfurls in green ridges and iron cliffs. The wind pushes at your back, the salt stings your lips, and the world quiets. This is a place that doesn't demand reverence. It inspires it. It's no surprise that Dunnottar has starred in film and television. It has the drama of fiction with the truth of history. It appeared as Elsinore in Hamlet and inspired the look of castles in Brave and other Highland epics. But no screen, no drone footage, no photograph can truly capture the feeling. To stand here is to understand why people build so close to danger, why they refuse to yield, why they carve their fate into cliffs. Dunnottar doesn't just show you a view, it shows you your own spine. In summer, the sea glows turquoise and wildflowers bloom in cracks between stone. In winter, the castle becomes something else, a fortress cloaked in mist, a shadow made of memory. Waves slam the cliffs with such fury that you feel the spray 50 feet up. The wind howls through arrow slits. And yet, even then, especially then, Dunnottar stands. This is not a ruin softened by time. It is a survivor sharpened by it. The journey to Dunnottar is short. A path from the nearby town of Stonehaven takes you along the cliff tops, with breathtaking views around every bend. But that short walk stays with you long after. Each step a question. What would I defend? What would I endure? At the castle gate, you're not a tourist. You're a pilgrim, a witness to something older than comfort and truer than stone. Movie sup for you plus it 16. When you turn to leave, you'll do so slowly. There is something magnetic about this place. It pulls on the part of you that craves meaning. You'll look back more than once, and the castle, crumbled, defiant, will still be watching. It always is. From here, we cross into a land of lochs and forests, where fairy tales echo in the hills. A place of legends that lie just beneath the surface, and sometimes shimmer in the water itself. The Trossachs are a pocket of ridge, rolling wilderness within Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park, Scotland's first national park, and still one of its most beloved. Imagine, lochs like glass, cradled by hills that blush gold in the afternoon sun. Birch and oak forests, where deer tread softly and bluebells light the floor. Peaks that rise suddenly, but never threaten, just promise. Here, every mile feels different. Every turn in the road reveals a new story. And every still moment feels like it belongs in a poem. If there is one body of water that defines the Trossachs, it is Loch Katrine. Long, narrow, and winding like a river, Loch Katrine is more than just beautiful, it is storied. This is where Sir Walter Scott, the poet who helped sculpt modern Scotland's image, found inspiration. His 1810 poem, The Lady of the Lake, set in these very hills, catapulted the Highlands into romantic imagination. To Victorians, this was sacred ground. Even Queen Victoria herself sailed across Loch Katrine in 1869 aboard the steamer Rob Roy. Today, visitors can still cruise the loch aboard a steamship named Sir Walter Scott, letting the hills slip past like pages of an old storybook. While Scotland is famed for its towering Munros, the Trossachs offer something humbler and perhaps more intimate. Climb Ben Aon, a compact peak standing just 454 meters high, but with a view that competes with mountains 3 times its size. The trail begins gently through forest and fern, then steepens quickly, challenging your legs, but not your will. At the summit, you're rewarded with a panorama that captures everything. Loch Katrine, winding like a silver ribbon, distant peaks folding into mist, and a sense of being both above the world and part of it. Locals call it the mountain in miniature, but make no mistake, it delivers a giant's view. Nestled at the edge of the forest, the village of Aberfoyle is known not just for its charm, but for its connection to the other world. This is fairy country. In the 17th century, the Reverend Robert Kirk, a minister and folklorist, wrote The Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies, a book claiming that the hills around Aberfoyle were gateways to another realm. He died mysteriously soon after, and locals believe the fairies took him, his spirit now trapped within Doon Hill, which rises just beyond the village. Today, children still leave wishes and ribbons on the trees there, and those who walk quietly swear they feel something watching. Woodland laced with walking trails, waterfalls, and hidden lochs. Here, the air is clean, thick with pine, light dapples through leaves, and sometimes, the only sound is the crunch of your own footsteps. It's a place for slowing down, for seeing what you've been too busy to notice. A moss-covered stone, a red squirrel vanishing into the trees, a ray of sun breaking through cloud just long enough to warm your skin. This forest doesn't ask questions, it answers them. Quieter than Katrine, yet just as beautiful, Loch Ard lies tucked among the trees like a secret. At dawn, the loch becomes a mirror, reflecting the ridges of Ben Lomond in perfect symmetry. Canoes drift silently across the water, herons stalk the shallows, and fog coils like breath over the surface. This is not a place you stumble into, it is a place you choose, and in return, it teaches you how to listen. The Trossachs are also Rob Roy country, the land of the Highland rogue who became a legend. Rob Roy McGregor, cattleman, rebel, folk hero, lived, hid, and fought in these glens. He was both outlaw and icon, feared and admired. His birthplace lies near Loch Katrine. His grave can be visited in Balquidder, beneath a mossy headstone that reads, "MacGregor, despite them." Here, in the stillness of the glen, his spirit seems to linger, not as myth, but as a man who stood tall in a world trying to shrink him. The Trossachs don't dazzle like Skye or soar like Glencoe, but they welcome you in a way few places do. They wrap around you. They let you breathe. They make room to wonder, to rest, to feel a little bit more yourself. And when you leave, you don't feel like you've seen something impressive. You feel like you've been understood. From here, we travel east into a city of spires and scholars, a place of elegance, invention, and literary legend, where waves kiss the edge of stone and minds stretch beyond the horizon. There stands a town built not on sight, but on soul. Welcome to St. Andrews, a place of saints and students, golf and ghosts, ruins and revelation. It is a town that wears many robes. Medieval port, seat of learning, birthplace of golf, resting place of martyrs. But above all, St. Andrews is a place that whispers gently, "Come walk with me." On a map, St. Andrews is a modest coastal settlement in Fife, on Scotland's east coast. But in experience, it is vast. You walk down a cobbled street and pass a centuries-old university building, a 13th century cathedral ruin, a bustling cafe filled with students quoting Latin or laughing over chess, a wind-blown beach where saints once walked, and championship golfers now swing. This is a town where past and present live as neighbors, not in conflict, but in conversation. Founded in 1413, the University of St. Andrews is the oldest in Scotland and among the oldest in the world. Its colleges, cloisters, and libraries feel like something from an illuminated manuscript. Yet here, ideas are anything but dusty. This is where minds sharpen like blades, where gowns flow through stone archways, where traditions like Raisin Monday and the May Dip blur the line between academia and mythology. Wander through St. Salvator's quad at dusk, and you may hear music floating through open windows. Learning here is not confined to lecture halls. It's stitched into the town's breath. In the center of town lie the haunting ruins of St. Andrews Cathedral, once the largest church in Scotland, now a hollow frame of arches and stone. Begun in the 12th century, it stood as a symbol of religious power for over 400 years. But time and the Reformation pulled it down. What remains is not loss, but reverence, a ghost of grandeur, a reminder that even the mighty bow to time. Climb St. Rule's tower beside it for a panoramic view. The rooftops of the town, the North Sea glittering, the winding paths of memory. Up here, the wind hums through your coat, and the stones beneath your feet seem to breathe. On a crumbling cliff, half swallowed by the sea, stands St. Andrews Castle. Its jagged walls and shattered towers tell tales of siege and strife, power and protest. It was once home to bishops and burned martyrs. You can walk through the Bottle Dungeon, a pit hewn into rock where prisoners were dropped and forgotten, and explore the mine and counter-mine beneath the ground, a tangle of war tunnels dug by desperate hands during a brutal siege. Yet despite the darkness of its history, The castle now watches over quiet waves. It has become peaceful in its ruin. St. Andrews is also known as the home of golf, and not just by tradition, but by blood. The old course, established in the 15th century, is a shrine to the sport. Its Swilken Bridge is as revered as any cathedral arch. Here, the game has been shaped, challenged, and honored. Whether you're a golfer or not, a walk along the course, especially at sunrise, is unforgettable. You see dew lifting from the greens, flags fluttering in sea wind, players walking silently with caddies across the wide, sacred turf. And in that silence, the spirit of the game speaks. Stretching for over a mile, West Sands Beach is where earth and sky meet with grandeur. It is wide, it is clean, it is eternal. Famously featured in Chariots of Fire, its golden stretch invites not just runners, but dreamers. Here, students walk hand in hand beneath gull cries. Families build castles fated to be taken by the tide. The wind carries your thoughts out to sea and leaves you with clarity. You don't visit West Sands. You remember it, even years later, even without photos. St. Andrews has a heartbeat, and it's not a rush. It's a rhythm measured in footsteps, in stories shared over pints, in pages turned by the sea. It's a place of thinkers and wanderers, of priests and poets, of young minds and old stones. And no matter who you are, the town seems to say, you're welcome here, not with flash, but with grace. Look for a student sketching the cathedral from a window seat, a musician practicing violin under a stone archway, a grandmother sitting alone on a bench, looking out at the sea, smiling at something you can't see. These moments are not staged. They are St. Andrews, a town that doesn't need to impress, because it already understands. From here, we travel north to a coast shaped by wind and carved by time, where sea stacks rise like giants and castles crumble into time. Here, at the far edge of the land, Scotland speaks with the voice of waves and wind. The northeast coast is not flashy. It does not sing in tourist brochures or shine on Instagram reels. But it holds something rarer, something older. This is a coast of quiet resilience, of villages built against gales, and cliffs carved by centuries of salt. It is where Scotland shows not her softness, but her strength. Most visitors pass through Stonehaven on their way to Dunnottar Castle. And while the castle is unforgettable, the town itself deserves more than a glance. Set in a sheltered bay, Stonehaven is a harbor town with a poet's heart. Walk along the promenade with an ice cream in hand, no matter the season. Watch the tide roll against the seawall. Wander to the harbor, where sailboats bob and gulls cry above nets hung to dry. In the winter, this small town throws one of Scotland's oldest fire festivals, the Stonehaven Fireballs, where flaming balls are swung through the streets in a ritual as old as memory. Drive north along the winding coast, and you'll come to a place few tourists know. The Bowlers of Buchan, a collapsed sea cave, now a dramatic chasm open to the sea, a natural amphitheater, a stage for waves and seabirds. Stand at the edge and feel the wind rush upward, carrying with it the scent of salt and storm. Peer down and you may see seals, lounging on sea-slick rocks, or puffins in spring and summer, darting from the cliffs like winged jewels. It's not grand in the way of Glencoe, but it's intimate, alive, and the silence between the crashing waves speaks more than any tour guide could. Further north still lies the tiny coastal village of Pennock, made famous by the 1983 film Local Hero. The village is barely a street long, a row of whitewashed cottages backed against a towering cliff facing the wild North Sea. It's small, remote, often battered by wind, but as heart. A red telephone box stands at the center, the very one made iconic by the film, now a symbol of nostalgia and quiet charm. Stay here for a night and you'll understand. You don't need cities to feel connection. You don't need noise to feel meaning. Just wind, waves, and a place that seems to remember you. At the far northeastern tip of Aberdeenshire lies Fraserburgh, a town of fishing fleets and life. It is home to Kinnaird Head Lighthouse, the first lighthouse built by the Northern Lighthouse Board in 1787. What makes it unique? It was built inside a castle. Yes, a medieval castle retrofitted to save sailors. A perfect metaphor for this coast, where defense became guidance. Visit the Museum of Scottish Lighthouses to explore the legacy of those who kept the lights burning, risking their lives so that others might find their way home. Heading west, the Murray Firth opens wide, a vast bay framed by rolling hills and home to some of Britain's best wildlife watching. Here, you might spot bottlenose dolphins, often seen leaping from the surf near Cannock Point, especially during tidal changes. The waters also attract minke whales, porpoises, and in rare moments, orcas. But it's not just about the creatures. It's the light, soft and silver, the air, clean and tinged with brine, and the feeling that you're standing on the rim of something bigger than land. The northeast coast doesn't dazzle. It settles into you, quietly, deeply. It shows you what lasts. Stone built for weather, not fashion. Villages built for storms, not spectacle. People built for truth, not trend. And once you've walked its edges, you'll understand something simple, something rare. Beauty doesn't always shout. Sometimes it listens. From here, we begin the final arc of our journey, back toward the heart of Scotland, to places touched by royalty, nature, and ancient battlefields. Between Edinburgh's shadow and St. Andrew's spires lies a kingdom once ruled and still quietly revered. This is Fife, known by its ancient title as the Kingdom of Fife. Not because it's grand in scale, but because of the stories it holds in its soil. Here, Scottish monarchs were born, clans rose and fell, and villages glimmer like secrets along the sea. Fife doesn't beg to be discovered. It simply waits, like a trusted friend, ready when you are. Fife's new, from the old Scots word for corner, is a ribbon of charming fishing villages that feel lost in time. Each one is distinct, yet together they form a single, unforgettable rhythm. Ellie golden sands, beach cricket, and quiet wealth. St. Monan's, home to a crooked medieval church perched on the sea edge, its graveyard kissed by salt wind. Pinwima bustling with working boats, fish markets, and narrow wines that twist like folklore. And Struther famous for fish and chips, and a harbor lined with laughter and history. Crail, perhaps the prettiest of them all, with terracotta roofs, stacked stone cottages, and a tiny harbor wrapped in weather-worn charm. These villages are not displays. They are living places, where you can hear the gulls, smell the sea, and taste the age in every bite of fresh haddock. Stretching over 180 kilometers, the Fife Coastal Path is one of Scotland's finest long-distance walks. It hugs the coast from Kincardine to Newburgh, taking you past beaches, cliffs, castles, and forgotten coves. You don't have to walk at all. Even a short stretch reveals treasures. A sun-bleached shipwreck, a hidden sea arch, a pod of dolphins chasing the surf, and always the sea beside you, constant, yet changing. Each step is a meditation, each mile a memory waiting to be made. Tucked inland, beneath the Lomond Hills, lies the storybook village of Falkland, once the favored retreat of Scottish royalty. Here stands Falkland Palace, a Renaissance masterpiece built by the Stuart kings, with honey-colored stone and French flair. Walk through its orchard gardens. Explore its painted ceilings. Stand on the world's oldest real tennis court, built in 1539, where kings once played and plotted. It was here that Mary, Queen of Scots, wandered in thought, hunting in the woods and writing letters by candlelight. Falkland feels frozen in amber, a village untouched by time, yet filled with life. You half expect to see Mary herself emerge from a shaded archway, book in hand, eyes full of secrets. Further west sits Culross, a perfectly preserved 17th century town that feels like a film set and has become one thanks to shows like Outlander. Its mustard yellow palace, cobbled streets, and whitewashed houses with red tiled roofs seem plucked from a time before industry. But Culross is not just charming. It is symbolic, a reminder of the wealth once built on salt coal and trade. Explore the Culross Palace, with its original painted wood beams and fragrant herb gardens. Climb the hillside for a view over the Firth of Forth, the same view that merchants and monks once watched. And listen to the silence, not empty, but full of presence. Before Edinburgh, there was Dunfermline, the ancient capital of Scotland. It is here that kings were crowned and buried. Within Dunfermline Abbey, under a great stone slab, lie the remains of Robert the Bruce, warrior king, symbol of Scottish independence. The abbey itself is a masterpiece of Gothic reverence and Norman might, with a tall spire that still proclaims, King Robert the Bruce. Nearby, Pinncreef Park, donated by Andrew Carnegie, born in Dunfermline and once the richest man in the world, sprawls with paths, peacocks, and places to ponder power and purpose. Dunfermline isn't just history. It is identity, layered, complex, enduring. Fife is framed by one of the most iconic symbols in all of Scotland, the Forth Bridges. The Forth Bridge, 1890, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is a red steel cathedral of engineering, bold, beautiful, and immortal. The Forth Road Bridge, 1964, connects past to present. The Queen's Ferry Crossing, 2017, carries the future with grace and innovation. Together, they span more than water. They span eras. To stand on the shore and watch a train crawl across the red lattice of the Forth Bridge as the sun sets behind it, that's a moment that stays. Though its monarchy has faded into legend, Fife remains a kingdom in spirit. Not because of castles, but because of character. Not for grandeur, but for grace. It is a place of balance, coast and field, past and progress, wild sea and quiet stone. And for those who walk its shores, explore its villages, or pause beneath its oaks, Fife offers something royal indeed, feeling of belonging. Now, our journey turns westward again toward a final series of reflections. We'll walk moors where stories still echo, visit glens that cradle old gods, and finally, return to the place where it all began. Before you return to where you began, you must first cross the place where nothing and everything lives. This is Rannoch Moor, an expanse of bog, loch, rock, and silence. It is one of the last true wildernesses in Europe. 40 square miles of land so wild, so untouched. It feels like another planet. And yet, this is Scotland at its most raw, its most honest, where there are no castles, no crowds, only truth wrapped in mist, water, and wind. To reach Rannoch Moor, you must leave behind the towns, the cafe, the signs that tell you what to expect. You take the A82, one of the most dramatic roads in Britain, a ribbon of tarmac cutting through a landscape older than memory. This road does not just lead you through the Highlands, it transforms you. As you climb past Bridge of Orchy, the trees thin, the ground opens, and suddenly you're surrounded by vastness. No fences, no houses, no end in sight, only the sky and the moor. Rannoch Moor is not empty. It is essential. Here, the land is wet and shifting, a patchwork of pea bogs, heather, and mirror-like lochs. Tiny islands dot black waters. Clouds move in slow herds overhead. The silence is not quiet. It's complete. There are moments when the only sound is the blood in your ears, or the distant cry of a red deer, drifting across miles of nothing. You don't explore Rannoch Moor. You submit to it. You become small and somehow more whole. Running across this moor is one of the most beautiful rail lines in the world, the West Highland Line. It crosses a solitary stretch of track, elevated by causeways, where trains appear to float over the land. The Rannoch station, a simple, unmanned platform, feels like it was placed here by a forgotten god, surrounded by silence, visited only by travelers and the occasional fox. To board a train here is to step not just into motion, but into meditation. Every window view a painting, every moment a passage. Just beyond Rannoch Moor, the landscape rises, suddenly, violently, beautifully. The Great Pyramid of Edinburgh pierces the sky at the gateway to Glencoe. Its name means the Great Herdsman of Edinburgh, and it stands like a guardian. At its foot lies the King's Hotel, once a drover's inn from the 18th century, now a refuge for weary hikers and wide-eyed travelers. From the car park, you can walk to a perfect viewpoint: the mountain, the moor behind you, the road ahead, winding toward Glencoe like a question. We began our journey in Glencoe, and now, as we return, it feels different, because you are different. You've seen the coast, climbed the peaks, listened to the silence of abbeys, of beaches, of forgotten stones. Now, as you descend into the glen again, its cliffs feel more than majestic. They feel merciful. The mist that shrouds the peaks, not menace, but memory. The road, not escape, but completion. This valley, once a place of massacre, is now a place of healing. If you step out and walk, even just for a little while, you'll feel it underfoot. Moss, soft as breath. Stone, cold with time. Earth, soaked in stories. There's a strange peace here, the peace of things that have endured, not just survived, but become more beautiful for the breaking. You sit by a stream and understand. Scotland is not about seeing, it's about feeling. And this glen, once called the Valley of Weeping, now weeps only for those who never came. Glencoe, Rannoch Moor, and the road that links them are never the same twice. Sometimes the sky is a low ceiling, heavy with rain. Sometimes the clouds part and light spills over the land like gold dust. And sometimes everything vanishes into mist, and you see only what matters. In those moments, you don't need landmarks. You don't need maps. You just stand still, and Scotland stands still with you. This place, this moor, this glen, this silence is not the finale of a tour. It is the threshold, where everything you've seen comes together, where every hilltop view, every village lane, every ruined chapel and castle wall echoes back in the wind. Rannoch and Glencoe don't complete the journey. They consecrate it. Now, there is only one place left. A return, not to a destination, but to the feeling that began it all. One final moment where Scotland says nothing, and somehow says everything. No matter where you go in Scotland, you are never far from return, because Scotland doesn't end at the edge of a loch or at the final page of a guidebook. It ends when your breath catches, and your silence means more than your camera. It ends in the moment where you stop trying to see Scotland, and instead, you let it see you. No matter where you go in Scotland, you are never far from return, Because Scotland doesn't end at the edge of a loch or at the final page of a guidebook. It ends when your breath catches, and your silence means more than your camera. It ends in the moment where you stop trying to see Scotland and instead you let it see you. And so we come to the end, not with fanfare, but with awe. It rolls across the moors, curls along the riverbanks, wraps around ancient stones like a final embrace. The fog doesn't erase the land, it reveals its truth. Because here, at the end of our road, you begin to understand what Scotland really is. Not a place, but a feeling. You came with expectations, maybe even a checklist. Castles, highlands, monsters, history. But somewhere between the lines, between the lichen and the lochs, you found something else. A stranger waved at you for no reason. A rainstorm made you laugh. A ruined chapel made you cry. A narrow trail led to a view you'll never find again. And suddenly, Scotland became yours. Not the Scotland on postcards, but the Scotland that looked back at you. You'll leave footprints in peat, raindrops on old maps, receipts from bakeries you never expected to love. You'll leave behind moments you can't retell, not because they weren't amazing, but because they were quiet. And those are the ones that last longest. Because Scotland doesn't need to be shouted, it just needs to be felt. Maybe you shared whiskey with a stranger in Portree. Maybe you danced in a Cayley Hall in Inverness. Maybe you stood in a museum in silence, reading the name of someone who once walked these same roads. Scotland is not a solo journey. Even alone, you are never alone here. The land holds you. The people greet you. The wind listens to you. And the sky, it remembers you. There will be a final turn, final bend in the road, a final view of a glen, a loch, a stone wall lit by sunset. You will pause. You will breathe. You will feel something move inside you. And then you'll walk away. Not because you want to, but because you must. That's the nature of this place. It gives. Then let's go. Scotland doesn't end when the trip does. It lingers. In your boots, still carrying mud from Skye. In the playlist that now sounds like a wind-whipped coast. In the quiet smile you wear when someone asks, "How was it?" You'll say it was beautiful. You'll try to explain. But how do you describe a place that isn't a place, but a mirror? How do you tell someone what it felt like to stand on the edge of a cliff and feel your soul widen? You won't, and you don't need to. Scotland knows. You're standing at a train platform, or on a ferry deck, or in a highland field with your pack zipped tight. A gull cries. The clouds part. A sunbeam falls on distant peaks. You smile. You nod, not to anyone in particular, but to the place itself. And then you turn and walk on. If you haven't been, go. Don't wait for the perfect season, the perfect weather, the perfect plan. Scotland isn't waiting to impress you. It's waiting to know you. Get lost. Stand still. Let the fog find you. And when it does, when you finally see nothing but sky, stone, and self, you'll realize that what you were looking for wasn't Scotland. It was something inside you. And here, you found it.